Not the same length on this side as it is on that one, but let's walk out the longest length of this and see how long it is. This is a public park, so I should be able to play with my kites and stuff here during the day, and that'll help me to keep my mind off of how much hell there really is. I'm going to measure this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, we'll call it 28. The plastic sheeting that I have is 25, and that's about, let's see, 28 to 27 to 26 to 25. That's about right there. So from there on down, that's a pretty decent length. There's quite a bit of park around here, and this whole area here is huge. Now this length here, we'll call it, we'll pretend like if it was to go all the way to where it would be a corner, which would be right about here. We'll measure that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that one's 20. Since I plan on taking 5 foot off of each of the pieces of plastic that I have that are 25 feet by 10 feet, they should go from right there at the tip of my foot to the end there. That's about 20 foot. That's with the 2 5-foot sections out. Now when we figure that'll be the full length of it, that means that the back end will be the longest part, because it'll be 20 feet by 10 feet by 20 feet, 10 feet. So it'll be basically the size of 2 squares set side by side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the corner that would be here and move it to the center, and the other corner would be probably right about here, and we'd pull it to about the center, and that would give us a big delta wing, but it would actually be doubled up. And at the front end, I could put some stuff in it to make it thicker, and also that'll make it so that the bottom side is one full sheet, and since they're brand new, they have no in them, making it so that the bottom part, the part that's going to touch the water, so that it's one full sheet. And then I have some adhesives and some other cool stuff that'll help to make it more buoyant. Not the adhesives themselves, but the pool noodles and also some soda bottles. It's going to only have either 2 or 4 soda bottles all together. I could do 4, but it's not going to be necessary. I was just thinking about if I had 2 soda bottles, they're basically there for buoyancy, and then have 2 of them for in case I need something to drink. So hopefully I do the smart American thing and remember to build cup holders into it. God, it sucks riding around in a rally car with no cup holder. Sucks riding around in an old Volkswagen with no cup holder. It sucks having a tent with no cup holder, or a sports seat with no cup holder. Man, we need cup holders. That's what someone should invent, a cup holder that can attach to anything. All right, well, the whole point is, because of the size of it, it would be constricted to something that wide. I could literally build it inside of this little triangle here without touching the sides of the triangle with my project. It'll be small. If it was a little bit bigger, it might be aerodynamic, but I do not intend on making it aerodynamic or bigger at this point in time. What I want to do is I've got all that tape that I bought, and I've got like 4 rolls of the cheap stuff, and then for the exterior stuff and anything on the bottom, I've got the waterproof tape that's supposed to last forever. So if I get a puncture or a hole, I got the stuff to seal it up with. Looking at the park here, it's not too busy. Also, it's a nice comfortable temperature here. It's a nice comfortable atmosphere. The church that I should be going to on Thursday for food, since I missed their food today, is, well, it's literally right across the street there. See right there? You see that church? Yep, that church right there is where I go. Now, with that church, they feed homeless people and I guess poor people. And we'll face the camera back at me. You guys get to see it's got a little bit of fancy human stuff. It's got one of these tables. These are specifically made for people who are in a wheelchair. That way they can pull up to the thing. That homeless camp where there's nobody there and it's trashed to all Hades is close enough that if I want to go clean it up a little bit, I can. If there's anything over there that I want to scavenge, I know where it's at. For this part, I mean, there's some other stuff that basically after I've got it made and working, I do have the supplies to make another one in miniature. And then not any of the concepts that I'm going to add to it will be done in miniature. If I'm told that I can't have all my big stuff out here and build me something for in case of emergencies, because it'll look pretty cool. And going out and riding, it'll be all right. But, you know, if we get some inclement weather and it floods like that officer was saying, you know, that'd be some good weather for testing it out in. Now, the one thing to worry about in that situation, like I was talking about before, about I want to make it so that it's got holes in it, big holes in the top of it. And that way when I pop it open, instead of, let's say you have just a little teeny tiny hole and you try to pop something like that open, it's got a lot of volume area inside of it once it's been popped open, like the idea of the pop open chairs, you know, they take up a lot of area. Now let's imagine that was a cube and it had to suck in enough air for it to be able to open. If you have to wait for something that's got a tiny hole to suck in enough air, you're actually having resistance because there's less air pressure inside of it than there is outside, and you're having to fight that resistance there. It has to wait until it sucks up enough air in that area to fill it up. And if you've got a big hole, it does that quickly, simply, and easily. Now, also the downside of that, having the big holes, is that if you've got inclement weather where it's raining, those big holes do run the risk of having rain fall into them. And I figured about a 5-inch across hole for each section of wing. And I do call them wings, even though it's not meant to fly. It's not going to fly. It'll probably be lightweight enough to fly, but it's not going to have a power plant on it. For those of you who don't understand some of that terminology, power plant is any type of engine or propulsion system that you have, whatever runs it. It could be a windmill, it could be a sail, it could be a Mazda engine. The power plant on the HMS Victory, which is an old sailing ship, the power plant on that would have been its sails, would have been the mast. well, the mast and everything that's attached to it, including the sails. I do like this park. It's in the city. It looks like kind of an industrial area, which is an odd place to put a park. But, and probably not exactly that healthy since we got the dairy farm literally other side of that hedgerow. And then, probably not the best to go to that church either because it's right next to where the cows are. But it reminds me of Nebraska. Kind of takes me home for a second. Right here is the Church of the Nazarene. This is another one that they were telling me about. They told me how to drive here. They should have just pointed where it's at. Like, yeah, literally, it's right there. From where they were talking to me, I would have seen it if I'd have turned around and actually looked. From back there, I wouldn't have been able to read that it says Church of the Nazarene. Certain times of day I would have been able to, but not this one. When it's hazy out like this, my vision at a distance, it's really good, but you know, I can't make out small details, and you know, a lot of times when it's gloomy like this, there's not enough shadows and not enough reflections and refractions to actually make something pop out. So I'd have to really focus on it. From a distance, I'm not sure how well I'd be able to do that. When I say I'm a good shot, like a really good shot, I don't know how true that is now because my vision used to be a lot better. Now it's about average, but you know, it used to be really good out far away and up close. There's some buildings around here that kind of remind me of old aerodromes from like World War I. And of course I like military technology, not necessarily what it was created for, but the implications for the future that come from it. And also, like the purposes for which it was built. I mean, its intended purpose, in many of those cases, is only to save the life or preserve the life of the soldier while on the battlefield. Only a little bit of that gear is actually weaponry. And that gear that's actually weaponry is specifically meant to kill other human beings, which I'm not cool with. But why? Why do we utilize that particular one? Why do we have a need for them? Why do we have a need for a military? Now, as far as the need for a military, that's pretty easy. It's just like what we're seeing here among the homeless community and among the rest of society towards the homeless community. And we get to see how it all flows downhill. All these different folks in America who aren't allowed to take it out on any religious groups anymore. They're not allowed to take it out on any specific color of person anymore unless it's white. They're not allowed to take it out on women anymore. So, you know, really all they have left is the homeless. So it all slides downhill. And then, of course, you got the people who are homeless who are victimized repeatedly. And they hate it. They hate how it feels. You guys in houses, you hate how it feels to go to work and have shit at the end of the month. And then you want someone to take it out on. Well, it's not the homeless fault that you have that situation. But then you come out and you take it out on the homeless. And the homeless people that you take it out on, most of them, they know that they're going to go to jail if they do anything about it. Some of them don't give a shit and will fuck you up quick, fast, and in a hurry. most of them know that they don't want to get in trouble. So they just have to take your abuse. They know if they speak up, they'll get in trouble because ain't nobody actually got your back. They might say they do, but at the end of the day, they'll watch you drown. Now, I'm kind of messed up in the head, of course. And why do I say that? Because I'll help you even if I don't like you. I don't want you to die. That's fucked up. We don't live in a perfect world. We don't live in anything close to a perfect world. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that. But for me, when people do messed up stuff, I still see them as people. I also try hard to understand why they would do such fucked up shit. And for most of them, the clues are all right there, and sometimes they're not even clues. People outright state it. I outright stated what my issue was, and Natalie Bollinger actually outright stated her issue, but her issue was wrong. Mine wasn't. She was listening to a whole bunch of her predators and doing what a whole bunch of her predators wanted about somebody that they didn't even fucking know. And she wanted to make them happy, and it didn't matter if it destroyed my life in the process. When I let her know what was going on with people calling me horrible things and abusing me for those things that I did not do, not to her, not to anybody. Well, here I was getting messed with by people like Tim Beeson. A lot of people before him, but Tim Beeson was the first one I could positively identify with Natalie Bollinger. I just needed them to leave me the hell alone. And if I'd had the ability to show Natalie, maybe she'd ask him to stop by his own admission, and that's in the evidence too. By his own admission, he didn't tell Natalie all the fucked up shit that he was doing. And the thing is, if he hadn't have been doing that fucked up shit to begin with, we could have avoided this. Not in specific Tim Beeson, because he wasn't the only one who did it. That's the thing about Natalie and Alicia being pretty and young. And of course, having the drugs that everybody wanted. That's probably a big bonus right there too. But also, Maddie Bowe was one of those drug dealers as well. I gotta let my car cool down just a little bit. Well, just a little bit more. You get to hear, from the cops, of course, how the laws here are interpreted differently here than they are on the Oregon website. Yeah, you're allowed to boondock in the federal forest and the national forest and the state forest, unless a warden tells you you can't, which depends on whether or not you're a family or a hobo. Yay! There's a guy who went coast to coast, and he went by trails, backwoods trails, and through the mountains, and made a whole book about them, and some of the nice places that you can stay and camp for the night, all through the country. And, so he's got this book, and now he sells it on the internet. He's telling me about his story, and gives me a free he gives me a PDF of it, is what it was, I think. But I read the whole thing, and you know, he talks through the whole thing. He talks about all of these wonderful places. It's basically like a walk through the country travel guide. And while I was reading it through the whole thing, I realized that all of the stories that he had told me that I was expecting to read something about in it weren't in there. Because he was telling me about the park rangers telling him he couldn't this and he couldn't that, and local sheriffs, and even being taken before local magistrates, and he had to explain to him he was making a book. He also had to try explaining to him that, oh, by the way, look at this. It's a stick. Once you peel the stuff off the outside, you slide it off. You got this little dinky stick. Lichens eat things. In the middle here is a piece of a branch that's coming off, so it's not going to slide off like this. That'll probably break into two pieces before this piece gets off. Yep. 3. Anyway, working with different materials, the more you work with them, the more you realize how they work and what you can do with them. What the easiest way is to strip them for whatever materials you need. Lichens are extra. They're lightweight and they make good filler. If you're going to use something with lots of lightweight styrofoam, you can put this in with the spray foam and it'll be lightweight, it'll fill it up, it'll make your seafoam last longer. Also, since it'll be enclosed in the seafoam, and the seafoam is full cells, so it doesn't suck in any water. These right here won't suck in any water either. Nothing you put in there will. Or should. The stick here, you know, it's not going to have much for that, but it could be useful in model making, especially when it's now got some flex to it. Not much though. It broke. But it's also small. Maybe I could use it for cleaning my fingernails. It is cool to know how it fell apart easily like that though, isn't it? Anyway, there's a church I'm supposed to go to, and because I missed the feed, or, well, that's what the homeless call them, depending on where you're at. A lot of places they stopped calling it a feed because it makes us feel like cows, or seem like cows, or basically it makes us sound like we're a bunch of cows. But that's the reason that homeless people started calling it a feed, is because y'all stuff in there like cattle, and you're stuck in there with people who haven't bathed in months, people who have horrible hygiene. You're stuffed in there like sardines. You hungry? Not after you sit next to this guy. It's like a bunch of cattle. You all stuff yourself in there, and it smells like shit. You eat food in a place that smells like shit. And then we get told the homeless smell, the homeless smell. Yeah, we know. Not all of them. Not all of them. Some people have a friend who will let them shower every other day or something like that, which is cool. But not always. Some people will go down to the creek and freeze, but that doesn't completely de-stink them, because most of those folks, they don't want to use soaps and get in trouble. And if you're using soap, it makes suds and you get busted immediately. Oh my God, there's somebody bathing in the creek. We better do something. You better do something. That might kill some fish and all that. So we'll see. I'm going to shut this off and head to that church shortly. The little boat thing that I'm making it a Delta Wing, and it's gonna have just a little bit extra. There's a couple little cuts in the rear end of it that I gotta make, and the parts that I cut out are gonna be attached to the rest of it, so, as the remainder of the tail piece, which should extend out just a few feet. But to start with, just the regular Delta with a couple of things coming off of it, a little bit of those pool noodles on the bottom, so that in the skid area, that's the bottommost portion of it, that's going to be the highest risk area. I'm going to be right on top of that part of it, and that's the part that if it's going to hit something in the water, it's more likely to hit there, and I want it to have a buffer there so it doesn't just tear right through it. It's not something that's going to be meant to go out and sail on the ocean every day or anything crazy like that. I'm just making something just to test out the concept. I already know it's going to work, and I'm going to show that it's going to work. Once I've been able to show that it's going to work, there's other people who might pick up the idea and work on it themselves, and they might have the money to invest in better materials to do it with. When I invent something, I invent it for everybody. So if I'm able to get a proof of concept out there, then, well, I think that everybody should be allowed to build it. Everyone. Not restricted. Also, I believe that if there's a major company that could mass produce it, but you guys still want to build it in your garage, I still think that major company should be able to mass produce it. And the reason for that is because, well, they're probably employing people, probably helping to contribute to the economy. And although I'm not a big fan of big companies and I prefer mom and pop shops, I think that some of my ideas, well, like one of my brick ideas, I want it to be universal, of course. I want everybody to be able to make that size and shape of brick, even if you're in Germany or the USA or Japan or wherever, you can still produce it. And if, you know, it turns into trash and it's out there floating on the ocean, you know what? I'm sure there's people that would pick them up and go, hey, I can build something with that. So it's a matter of intent when you're building something. Do you intend on it for it to last forever? Well, I want to build with the plastics that do last for an extremely long time, are extremely resistant to UV and all that other kind of stuff. That's why I picked #1 plastics. But for my prototypes, I don't have the stuff to work heavy duty with #1 recycled plastics at the moment. There's enough stuff just around that camp over there that I could make a mold to make a small kayak for like a kid to use. But other than that, yeah, I don't think I'd do too good with just stuff here. I could probably make a decent one out of the roof on my car if I was able to cut it off and then push a seam down the center of it. That way I could actually fold it, but that's not something I'd be able to do by myself. Also, I wouldn't be able to rotomold it doing it that way. I would have to heat something up, and I'd have to basically shred my plastic, of course, and then I'd have to heat something up like a hot iron and push it over the top. Probably in that instance, what I'd want to do is get a flat bread pan and set it on top of the plastics unmelted with the roof of my car on the other side of it. And when I set the hot thing on it and move it, then that hopefully non-stick pan will prevent the plastic from sticking to that part, and it'll only partially stick to the outside mold if it does stick. And once you've been able to layer that up a bit over the entire interior, you know, you've got something that'll be pretty structurally stable and last a long time. I've been going off in this for quite a while, so I'm going to say good to be with you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper and no victim left behind. I'm going to see about going to the shelter that they have here, kind of sort of a shelter. I guess it's just a few people there. And I'm gonna, I guess, come to the park here every day to work on my projects and hopefully hopefully we'll be able to keep some people safe, and I'll be able to make some cool stuff, and maybe we'll save some lives.